All right, man, peace. So as we all know by now, Guillermo Rigondeaux, one of boxing's top 10 pound-for-pound best, quit on his stool because he could not deal with the massive ass whooping that Vasyl Lomachenko was giving him from the first second of round 1 all the way to the last second of round 6. He mentally could not deal with it. And I predict that he's most likely going to retire because pure boxers with the renown that he has to be treated like a little boy, basically, from the opening bell all the way to the end of round 6, I don't know how he's going to be able to come back from this. There was not one moment of competitiveness in this fight. Not one. Lomachenko made him look like a little boy. But now let's see how this transpires.
Discussion going on in the corner of Rigondeaux here in between the 6th and 7th round as they're looking at the...
I don't blame Diaz for stopping the fight. There was not one moment where this fight was in doubt at all. After about round 2, it was very, very clear that Rigondeaux was not going to be able to land a punch of significance because of Lomachenko's footwork. And I stated in my prediction video that both fighters pretty much maxed out in the same attributes. The only difference in the fight was going to be that Lomachenko was faster, had better footwork, and a longer reach. Now, Rigondeaux has an official longer reach, but whenever you're talking about reach, you also have to factor in the style of fighting that a boxer utilizes, because there are certain styles that maximize your reach, and there are certain styles that really don't, unless you run in. And it became very apparent from early on in the fight that the angles and the footwork of Lomachenko and his constant activity, and then the fact that he's not just moving, but he's throwing constant punches, and the punches are hard. This is something that Rigondeaux could not deal with.
At the tape. That's it. He is saying, I don't want any more. Are you kidding me? The undefeated number 7 pound-for-pound fighter is not coming out to continue against Loma. Beaten down, hopeless, without an answer, and Lomachenko has made Rigondeaux quit.
Lomachenko is what you call a wonderkind. He's somebody who was just born to be what he is, born to do what he does. You have certain people like that who are just raised from the cradle, and they're very, very fortunate that they find what they want to be in life very early, and they embark on that journey from that point, and that's what allows them to succeed to the level and to the extent that they do. I mean, we saw it with Floyd Mayweather in other sports. We saw it with Kobe Bryant, the Williams brothers, the Williams sisters. We see it with different people who are able to find what they want to do in life, sometimes due to being coaxed by their parent. And, they're able to achieve great things. We also saw it with Tiger Woods. Okay? We see it with Kyrie Irving. What you'll notice, what all those people have in common, is that they have a father figure who guides the child.
Rigondeaux's American dream remains unclaimed, and we have now, at least from my perspective, a new pound-for-pound king, and maybe a new entry in the history of boxing.
Look, I remember a few boxing videos ago, I mentioned Lomachenko as being in my top 5, I believe top 3. I can't remember if I had him 3 or 2. And a couple of guys in the comments, why you got Lomachenko up there? What has he done? Look, if you watch boxing long enough, or if you participate in the sport, you know greatness when you see it. He's a great fighter. There's no getting around it. And I've always liked Rigondeaux. I was rooting for him. I thought that he got the short end of the stick at top rank. But he got totally outclassed tonight. And was size a factor? Yeah, a little bit. But even had they been the same size, I don't see the fight having been much more competitive than it was. I could see maybe Rigondeaux having a better chance of landing a big shot had Lomachenko been a few inches shorter, but that really would not have made a difference. He was clearly the bigger man, Lomachenko was, but he was also clearly the much more skillful man in regards to the multitude of the aspects of his skill set than what Rigondeaux had. That was obvious.
Honestly, I still think there's groundwork, but I've never seen anybody with skills like Rigondeaux. I can tell. I mean, excuse me, like Lomachenko. Never seen anybody like skills like him. Amazing.
Well, I wouldn't say I've never seen anybody with skills like him. Ray Leonard has, fought in a very, very similar style. Floyd Mayweather, Roy Jones, but Lomachenko's up in that area. He's up in that class. Now, can he meet somebody who actually can match him or approximate him? He's going to have to move up a little bit to find guys who can challenge him, because there's really not anybody down at that weight class. Rigondeaux was somebody who was dominating at 122 and who jumped up 2 weight classes to fight him. I said in the prediction video I wasn't crazy about it, but once again, I don't see that being a major factor in the outcome of the fight. Rigondeaux just got totally outclassed and outsmarted. He had no answers whatsoever. All he could do was hold. That's all he could do, because clearly the flurries and the power were affecting him to the point where he could not even concentrate on getting his own offense off.
Amazing, amazing. He was clowning him as early as the 2nd round. He threw the triple uppercuts in the 3rd. It continued time and again. The fouling started by Rigondeaux. Bernardo, what were you able to gather in that corner of the Cuban?
All right, there's different versions because it's an injured hand, and Pedro Diaz was messing with the left glove of Guillermo Rigondeaux, and he wanted to take the glove off as soon as he went into the corner. And I asked Pedro what happened. He says he's not going to continue. He's not going to continue. It's his hand.
Listen, you can talk about injured hands all you want. That's part of fighting. Many championship fighters, many fighters have won championship fights with injured hands. Happens all the time. You got to act like a fighter. You got to continue. Your reaction to hearing that?
I don't know about that. I don't know. I think that's just trying to find a way out.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's just excuse making. All that is a big excuse. He got his ass whooped from round 1. So, I mean, unless you hurt your hand shadow boxing in the locker room before the fight, I don't want to hear that bullshit. At the same time, the announcer, Tessitore, he's being a little bit unprofessional himself. Clearly a guy who's never stepped in a ring a day in his life. He's saying these things about Rigondeaux. Why is that? Because he's on the Lomachenko train, which is understandable. He's a phenomenal fighter. But you'll oftentimes see this with transcendent Caucasian athletes, where the announcers go out of their way to make unprofessional statements. For those of you who are familiar, if you remember the aftermath of the Kelly Pavlik Jermaine Taylor fight, it was almost like a Klan rally when Jim Lampley and Larry Merchant were calling the fight as Kelly Pavlik was about to knock Jermaine Taylor out. There's a certain type of resonance that comes from announcers when they see Caucasian boxers or Caucasian athletes able to dominate, particularly if they're able to dominate a black athlete. But look, all that being said, it's a bunch of bullshit what Rigondeaux is talking about right now. But I knew he was going to come with an excuse. He talked so much shit before the fight that his pride is wounded. This is why I say the only way that he can come back is if he makes up an excuse like this. Other than that, I see him retiring. Because what else is he really going to say? He has to fight. And like I said this before the fight, he's not really accustomed to fighting fighters with that level of footwork. So it was very difficult for him to get his shit off.
I don't know about that. I didn't even see him really land a left hand.
I agree. I mean, what did he land where he hurt his fist? That's why I said for him to have hurt his fist, it must have been before the fight, in the locker room.
Say what you want. You can come up with anything in that corner. The bottom line is he didn't continue on, and Lomachenko's the reason why.
Oh shit, here come the pimp. Here come the pimp. I knew it. Finally got Rigondeaux out of here. Bastard.
Lomachenko in his promotional camp. Gathered here, they will look at that hand.
Let him leave it on right now. We'll check it out in the back.
I need to see some x-rays.
They're looking at that left hand. Surviving and advancing part of the game. This was the conversation with trainer and fighter. Do you want to continue? And he said no. You shook the head off, and then he goes to the right hand to start untaping the right glove. And that was the end of it. in a dominating performance.
Well, look, he knew that he had no chance. He was getting embarrassed. I mean, that's embarrassing for a world-class level athlete like a Rigondeaux, somebody who's dominated competition from all across the world, to get sunned like that. Like, he got sunned. There was no moment of competitiveness in the fight. Not one.
By Vasyl Lomachenko. Rigondeaux came in 17-0. He moved up 2 weight classes. We talked about the inactivity. We talked about the concerns of being older. We talked about being the naturally smaller man.
And I mean, look, when you get up past 35 as a professional athlete, you are going to lose some fast twitch, particularly if you're not active, as Rigondeaux has not been. But still, hey, you signed the contract, man.
He was not the more talented man.
In many ways, what I saw tonight was harmony, Lomachenko versus entropy. Rigondeaux trying to muck it up by holding the first round by anyone's standard. It was very, very close. And what you saw was Lomachenko adapt on the fly.
I wouldn't even call the first round that close. I mean, to me, that was a feel-out round. Rigondeaux was trying to see what the openings could possibly be with Lomachenko. And even then, he was basically just resorting to holding and wrestling tactics. And that's not his style. So he was holding, and it wasn't like he's a brawling fighter who's trying to get in close or in tight. He basically was holding because he couldn't see Lomachenko's punches.
I love what I saw tonight. I did not expect, well, I kind of did from the first round. I expected that, this fight possibly wouldn't go the distance. Granted, that the way...
Let's check in with Bernardo one more time.
Excuse me.
No, you're fine.
All right, when I was talking to Pedro Diaz in the corner, he said apparently he hurt his hand. And then I looked at Rigo and I said, Rigo, what happened? He pointed to the top of his left knuckle. But it's very suspect because you saw on that image how it was the right glove that they were playing with originally in the corner. So it may be protecting the fighter's reputation.
Let's go up to Michael Buffer.
Ladies and gentlemen, here at Madison Square Garden, the contest comes to an end as the challenger, Rigondeaux, has indicated an injury to his left hand. His corner tells the referee he cannot continue. At the end of round 6, the winner by TKO victory, still the WBO Super Featherweight Champion of the World, and the new claimant to pound for pound is the best fighter in the world, Vasyl Lomachenko.
Well, he definitely is most likely on the top of my list right now, just in regards to overall skills. Coming up right behind him would be Terence Crawford. Of course, Andre Ward is officially retired, so he's off the list. But as of right now, Lomachenko's on the top of my pound-for-pound list, with Terence Crawford right behind him.
A TKO win for Vasyl, and we will hear from the champ as well as Guillermo Rigondeaux after this short break and a return to Top Rank Boxing. Vasyl Lomachenko outlanded Rigo 55-15.
I want you to show me the 15 shots that Rigo landed. The fuck out of here. Unless you're talking about when Rigo headbutted Vasyli's fists. That what you talking about? Are those the 15 blows that was landed? The 15 times that Rigo headbutted Vasyl Lomachenko's gloves? The hell out of here.
Rigo couldn't come out and continue. A TKO victory. Let's go up to Bernardo.
Thank you very much, Joe. Vasily, that's 4 guys that don't come out of their corner in a row. What's your new nickname?
Maybe I change my second name. Maybe I change, and now my name is Lomachenko. All right.
Lomachenko, I like that.
How were you able to be so dominant tonight against a fighter who's got so much talent, who's got such a great pedigree like Guillermo Rigondeaux?
He's a good fighter. He's a top. He's a top fighter. He's a king in the boxing, but he's a king in his weight category. It's not his size. It's not his weight.
Exactly. Hey, that's Lomachenko saying that. He's the one who said that Rigondeaux had no business up at that weight. He's saying that. So let's please understand that that's part of the reason. Another reason is that, just quite frankly, Lomachenko just totally outclassed him in skills and overall array of boxing ability. So, as I stated, I have no doubt that Lomachenko would beat him even if he was at 122. But at 130, he had absolutely no chance. Especially at 37 years old. It just wasn't going to happen.
So it's not big win for me because it's another weight category.
But it's a big win for boxing because
the fans are booing him, but I totally agree. It's not that big a deal for him to have won the fight overall in regards to his esteem. Now, in regards to boxing fans, it was a great treat to see two fighters coming into the fight that we assume were going to be, both exhibiting high-class boxing skills. But, no. My man Rigondeaux, he had no answers for what Lomachenko was doing to him in that ring. None.
People wanted to see this fight. It was a mythical matchup. What's next for you after this big win?
I don't know. I need to rest 1 month maybe, and after that I begin to train and prepare for my fight. What about my next fight? I don't know. We need to ask my promoter Bob Arum.
How much did the Orlando Salido fight help you in terms of developing when another fighter is going to get dirty?
He learned me just low blow, punch a low blow. That's it.
And nonetheless, a brilliant performance once again by Vasyl Lomachenko. We're now joined by Guillermo Rigondeaux. Guillermo, ¿por qué no pudiste continuar? Why could you not continue?
La mano, o sea, ya el segundo round ya no podía ya tirar la mano.
He whooped my culo. He whooped my ass from round 1.
Perdí.
I lost, but it was because of my hand. In the second round, I injured the top of it, and I could no longer continue. ¿Qué te sorprendió
then you should have quit after round 2.
de tu rival Vasyl Lomachenko esta noche? What surprised you about Vasyl?
Un boxeador normal, técnico, rápido, explosivo. Es muy bueno también.
He's a very technical fighter. He's normal, though, but he's very technical, very quick, very explosive.
He's normal, but he's very technical, very quick, and very explosive. Okay. So, shit. If that's the case, you should never have won a fight in your career. If he's normal and he whooped your ass that bad, I mean, come on, brother.
¿Qué sigue para ti? What's next for you?
Imagínate, lo que sea. Sabes que yo peleo con el que sea. Nosotros no tenemos excusa para pelear con nadie. Nosotros peleamos con cualquiera.
I'm going to come back and I'll fight against anybody because there's no excuses. ¿El tamaño marcó diferencia esta noche? Did the weight difference mark a difference?
No, pero Lomachenko no está haciendo nada tampoco del otro mundo. No está haciendo nada, porque no puede tirar más las manos y ya no puede hacer más nada.
Lomachenko really wasn't doing anything. It wasn't about the weight. Really, it was just a hand that I injured, and that's why I could not continue. The fans say it all here at Madison Square Garden. Le das crédito a Vasyl Lomachenko.
Buen boxeador, excelente boxeador también.
I do give Vasyl Lomachenko credit, though. He is an excellent boxer.
Yeah, you need to say that, bro. To say that there was nothing really special about him, that he was just ordinary, but he whooped your ass like that, and the only reason why you lost was because the top of your left hand was hurt. Come on, man. That sounds like a complete excuse. It sounds like, an excuse that you made up so that you can have something to say to your Cuban fan base. However small but ardent they are. Look, I get it. You're 37 years old. You're going to have to find a way to rebound, to mentally tell yourself that the reason why you lost the fight how you did was because you were injured. You had an unbeatable aura around you before this fight. Of course, you will no longer have that. So in order for you to sleep at night, you have to tell yourself that there's a reason why you lost. No, bro, you just met somebody who was better. It happens.
We'll see what happens with the career of Guillermo Rigondeaux as Vasyl Lomachenko keeps moving up in the boxing world.
Wouldn't come off the stool. Lomachenko says I should change my last name from Lomachenko to Nomaschenko. That's the moment where he realized this guy's not continuing against me. The champ does it again.
All right, so now we're going to pick up with highlights of the fight and also a conversation between Stephen A. Smith and Teddy Atlas. Let's see what they have to say.
All right, let's talk to Teddy Atlas first. There he is, Vasyl Lomachenko, Guillermo Rigondeaux. Near the end of the fifth, Lomachenko, those lightning quick gloves, kept getting his arms pinned.
Look, I keep seeing Rigondeaux throwing a hard left hand. It's just that he has to throw it in a tight clinch because he can't catch him any other way.
To the obliques of Rigondeaux, he had enough, and frustration boils over to the end of the round. He's had enough. 6th round, final seconds of the 6th. Fighters will trade some more blows. This is a one-sided affair, and then the bell rings. And we're getting ready for the round number 7, but that's it. No more. No mas, apparently. Rigondeaux claims an injured hand. Did not come out for the 7th. That is a TKO. And Vasyl Lomachenko, scientist, artist, tactician, pretty good personality to boot.
Great fighter.
Is your winner on ESPN tonight. Teddy Atlas, was that a no mas situation?
That's exactly what it was, and that's why I even stated when one of the announcers tried to claim that there's never been a talent like a Vasyl Lomachenko. That's not true. He fights in a style very reminiscent of Ray Leonard when Ray Leonard was young, except Ray Leonard, of course, was a quote-unquote orthodox fighter. But he fights in a very similar style. And Lomachenko is a guy that they have to take advantage of right now because he fights in a very youthful style. He fights in a style that he needs to be youthful to fight at that style because he burns a lot of energy. I believe he's 29 years old. Once he gets around 32, 33, he's not going to be able to fight like that anymore. He's going to have to conserve his energy more. So his shelf life is not long because of his long amateur career and his extensive amateur career. So they are going to have to take advantage of it. But I'm sure Bob Arum already knows that. They have to get him as many big fights as possible while he's still in his prime.
Yeah, I'm giving a new name to Lomachenko. No-mas-chanko.
Yeah, I think that, Teddy, I think that Lomachenko gave that name to himself. I think that's what actually happened.
There it is, and you get part credit for that. No-mas-chanko. Because he makes fighters do what you're never supposed to do with your fighter. Relinquish, submit, quit. And he just did it again against a pretty damn good fighter.
Stephen A. Smith, 4th time now in a row that the fighter has just quit in between rounds. What it is about this dude that just obviously gets in people's minds and they can't continue.
Lomachenko is able to frustrate his opponents because of his style. As I've already stated, Ray Leonard, when he was young, fought in a style that is kind of reminiscent of Lomachenko with the constant activity, the flashy combinations, and the power punches, and also making his opponents quit because of the mind games. Now, if you combine Ray Leonard's style with Pernell Whitaker's style in the late 80s, early 90s, that to me is what Lomachenko reminds me of the most. And those of us who are familiar with Pernell, he also would frustrate opponents who he would often flabbergast because they would be unable to hit him, and he would constantly be changing angles. He also would clown on them, which is a form of mental warfare, to break your opponent down mentally and set them up for the kill. And that is really what happened with Rigondeaux, who, even though he is a pure boxer, also has the mindset of a bully. When things are not going his way, he quits. He makes excuses. And if you notice before many of his fights, he engages in a lot of trash talk, which is common amongst fighters. But you don't really get an understanding of people's mental makeup until situations like this. Rigondeaux showed that he had a very small ability to adapt to what was going on. He resorted to holding, which is a very, very primitive form of adaptation in the ring. Most A-class fighters, most A-class boxers are able to go to some type of a plan B. He did not even really seem to try to cut off the ring. I stated in the prediction video that Rigondeaux, he does not have great footwork in the ring in regards to his movement. His fundamentals, of course, are very good, coming from the Cuban school. But he doesn't really cut off the ring. He counts on his opponents coming towards him. Lomachenko did not even try to come towards him. He attacked him at various angles, in and out. And Rigondeaux was unable to time him. And I stated before the fight that his main opportunity would be to time him. Now, I did not think that Lomachenko's flashy combinations would be as troublesome as they were for Rigondeaux. Some people might want to blame age. Some people might want to blame the size difference. I blame neither. I think that Lomachenko is just even better than I thought he was.
Well, listen, I can't hear your question, but it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, you got that merengue music in the background, Steve.
because I'm here to tell you right now, it's definitely no Lomachenko. I heard that part about Teddy Atlas, and I'm prone to disagree with the great Teddy Atlas from time to time, but it won't be tonight. I can't tell you how disgusted I am. I mean, every time somebody goes against this guy recently, they quit. I understand his footwork is exceptional. He obviously must have some power. He clearly has some speed, and he's a superior technician to anybody that he's going in the ring against to this point in his career. But, I mean, my goodness, can you at least expect a...
And you see what Lomachenko does. He does things that many other fighters forget to do. You know, a lot of times, a master is somebody who just remembers the basics. He always moves his head before he approaches his opponent. He never approaches in a straight line with either his footwork or his head placement.
Fight? I mean, we're talking about Rigondeaux was undefeated in 17 professional fights, 11 knockouts, was known as a surreal and big-time counterpuncher. Somehow...
And he always covers himself when he displaces from the clinch. He never comes out the clinch with his hands down or just expecting that his opponent is going to let him back away. He always leaves the clinch with his hands up, ready to fire.
So wait, all he did tonight was duck and clutch. I'm trying to figure out when was the moment where he hurt his hand. Can somebody tell me that? Because I didn't see him connect with anything but air. The only time his fist touched Lomachenko was when he went up under his arms to clutch him. He went to throw punches outside and he kept ducking. It just makes me, I don't understand it. I don't understand it.
Lomachenko, where's the referee when you need him? Grab a hold of Steven just for a second. It wasn't a matter. Look, it was not obviously a good fight, but it was a great performance. But you need to hire...
The fight was terrible. And it was a great performance by Lomachenko over somebody who, by his own admission, was 2 weight classes down. I want to see Lomachenko against somebody at 140. Whoever the top guy is at 140, that's who I want to see Lomachenko against right now. And, you know, I mean... We'll see. Maybe 135. He is at 130 right now, but he's going to have to move up in weight. But I believe that the next best fighter is somebody like a Mikey Garcia at 140. Maybe a Robert Easter at 135. We'll see.
Hire a good matchmaker. You can put 2 good talents in there, but if you don't understand styles, you're not going to get a good fight. But that's not the job of Lomachenko. His job is to take care of business.
I love when these two talk. Because Stephen A. finally has to shut the fuck up. Because Teddy Atlas is going to get his word in. Stephen, you are a fireman.
With people in front of him, and he's taking... Now look, again, not a good matchmaker. Not a good match. I would have told you that going in. You have a defensive fighter against a guy who has defense and offense. That's like having a Super Bowl, trying to get a Super Bowl champion with just defense. We had the Baltimore Ravens, we had the Chicago Bears back in the 80s. But very rarely can you win a title without a quarterback, without an offense.
I'm not accepting that from you, Teddy.
Guess what?
I'm not accepting that from you.
Lomachenko is a quarterback. He's Brady. He's Montana. He's Steve Young. He does it all. Yes, he is.
Forgive me, ladies and gentlemen. Excuse me. Forgive me, ladies and gentlemen, to try to go in first take mode, but it's necessary with the rhetoric that Teddy Atlas is spewing right now. Last time I checked, you got 2 undefeated champions going up against one another. It's one thing to outclass an individual. It's another thing for an individual to quit. You remember when Nicholas Walters, the Axeman, went up against Lomachenko? Not only did he quit in the 7th round, but literally ran across the ring to hug him and congratulate him for making him quit. I mean, that's how ridiculous this has been.
Well, that's a way for a fighter to acknowledge that, wow, you just bring things to the table that I've never seen before. Oftentimes when a fighter loses, he'll be angry either at the referee or at himself for saying, well, I could have did this, I could have did that. I think many of these fighters leave the fight with Lomachenko saying, there's nothing that I could have done. This man is just light years ahead of me. And thus far, the level of competition that he's faced, he has been. Now, when he moves up, we'll see. Power oftentimes, especially power combined with skill, can bring elite level skill down a notch or 2. So we'll see.
I understand that Lomachenko may be great. I get all of that. But I still got some questions. You know why? Because I got questions about the level of competition that is going against him in terms of the heart inside dude's chest. You're a professional fighter and you're quitting with all your faculties in order.
That's reasonable.
You haven't been staggered. You haven't been wobbled. You haven't been dropped. You're not disoriented. But still in all, you're going to talk about you can't finish a fight. You know this better than me, Teddy. There's been plenty of guys that have fought throughout the years, okay? And, you know, they broke their hand, but they continued with one hand for a fight just to get through the 12th round or whatever. Because why? It's a gladiator sport.
Agreed. But Rigondeaux's not a gladiator. That's why I stated earlier, even though he's a pure boxer, he has the mentality of a bully. When bullies see that their plan A is not working, what do? They quit. That's what they do. Or they try to find a way out, right? Cheat in some type of way. Mike Tyson bit his opponent. George Foreman for years would not admit that Ali beat him. He claimed that the ring canvas was soft, that the ropes were loose, right? Sonny Liston, he claimed that he just gave up because Ali was crazy. No, these are things that bullies often will say, excuses that they'll make because they don't want to admit that they just lost. I noticed in the course of the fight, and I mentioned this already, Rigondeaux would not cut the ring off. No, with a guy like Lomachenko, you have to cut the ring off. Now, of course, Lomachenko has trained for fighters to try to cut the ring off on him, but sometimes you have to do those type of things anyway just to see how Lomachenko will respond. Put a little pressure on him. You know, but Rigondeaux is not a pressure fighter. He needed somebody to come to him. And as I've stated repeatedly on this video, his main opportunity to beat him would be if he could have caught him coming in, which he could never do.
There's valiancy that comes with it, but we're not seeing that from the recent fighters, the last 3 or 4 that have gone against Lomachenko. I got a problem with that.
Where's Mills Lane when you need him? Come in and take care of my brother. Put my arms around my brother and just tell him, just slow down just for a second, Steven. Listen, you can't argue. I said that already. What I'm saying is, it's like life. Everyone has to get tested. You don't know anything about anyone until they're tested.
Absolutely. Adversity reveals who you really are. That's why I always tell cats, man, you know, when I make these videos, you're dealing with your woman. You're talking about you love her, she love you. All right, brother. Go through a little adversity. Let's see how she responds. You have to go through repeated adversity with people who you think you're close with in your life to find out how close they really are. And you learn a lot of shit about yourself too, man. You go through things in life, you learn about yourself. You learn about things that you need to improve. Some things cannot be improved. Some things are just in a person's DNA. You know, when it comes to that boxing game, and this is why I say this is why I like sports. This is why I'll oftentimes use a sports video as the backdrop for something that I feel like I need to say or want to say in a video. Because sports reveals people's character or lack thereof. You get to see people who give up. You get to see people who, who are able to persevere through adversity. You get to see who shows or displays ingenuity. We get to see people who have no imagination whatsoever. You get to find out who good leaders are, what makes a good leader. All these things get displayed in sports. So even though the term sport just means a joke or jesting, it's a sport, right? It's something basically frivolous. It is something that, you know, we can learn from. And we learned a lot about Guillermo Rigondeaux tonight. We learned that he's an excuse maker and that he's a quitter. Bottom line.
Until you find out, they might look good, they might have glossy muscles, quick hands, quick feet like you got quick feet. They might have all those things, but you don't know what's inside until that test comes. And guess what? Lomachenko is the test man. He's not the machine, he's the test maker. He tests you. He tests you deep inside, not outside, not on the surface. What's inside? That's what he does.
You know, Larry Merchant once said, when speaking about Joe Frazier, he said that Joe Frazier was a truth machine. Whatever was inside of you, Joe Frazier was going to bring it out because of the relentless pressure that he would put on his opponents. And that's why people, with all the great performances that Muhammad Ali had, people still remember his fights against Joe Frazier. Why? Because it brought out this certain aspects in Ali's character that you never would have seen had he not fought Joe Frazier.
Guess
and
what?
hold on, wait a minute. Am I correct? I just want to make.
Another guy.
I just want to make sure I'm hearing Teddy Atlas. I just want to make sure I'm hearing Teddy Atlas correctly. Teddy Atlas, who I've been watching talking about boxing for over 25 years. Teddy Atlas, the great Teddy Atlas, who sits there and bringing out Dabo Sweeney if you have to. You know, I mean, it's all about guts, baby. You know what I'm saying? Bring your own guts. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about fighters. We're talking about individuals that are paid to professionally step in a ring and fight, and they're quitting. They're quitting when we barely even see them break a sweat just because they're getting embarrassed and schooled by a superior guy. If nothing else, you're supposed to have a puncher's chance. You're certainly supposed to have a puncher's heart in terms of believing enough in yourself to make sure that you go the distance. These guys are quitting without even going down. They're quitting smiling, talking about their hands hurting, or Nicholas Walter's case wanting to give him a hug and a kiss.
Well, Steve, a lot of times these fighters are doing that because they're already ready to quit the sport. Hey, you know, they say in boxing it's hard to get up and train when you're sleeping on satin sheets. A lot of these guys, they started boxing, they were damn near living in homeless shelters. You living in certain situations, you get up and you ready to fight a bear. After a while, your amenities start to improve. You don't really feel like getting hit in the face anymore. And after a few rounds, it's like, why is it worth it? I'm not going to win. I believe that Rigondeaux's trainer, as well as Rigondeaux, realized that they had absolutely no possibility of knocking this man out, and they were not going to win on the cards. I said before the fight that Rigondeaux had no chance of winning on the cards. His work rate is not high enough to beat Lomachenko on the cards. So once it was established that he was not going to land that knockout punch, the fight was over. I'm not excusing him for quitting. As I stated, I believe that it revealed certain shortcomings in his character, but it's understandable why his trainer wanted him to quit. It was over.
After quitting, this is what we're seeing. Don't tell me that in the sport of boxing, just because somebody is superior, that's a reason to quit. It's not a reason to quit. It's not a reason to quit.
The most important responsibility a fighter has is to behave like a fighter. Most important thing.
Right.
But that doesn't mean everyone's going to do that. And you don't find out until you find out. Carmen Basilio,
is quitting a
back
part
in
of
the
that?
40s, back
Is
in the
quitting a
50s,
part of that? Is
Carmen
quitting a part of
Basilio,
that? Is
Carmen
quitting a part of
Basilio
that?
fought Sugar Ray Robinson. No, you're not. That is not permissible. That is not allowable. There's no doubt about it.
Is
But
quitting
guess
a
what?
part of it?
We live amongst human beings. It's not supposed to be.
Stop
but
it,
we
Teddy.
live
Stop
amongst
it.
human beings, not machines. Human beings. Listen, Carmen Basilio fought Sugar Ray Robinson back in the 40s.
You know, before Teddy Atlas goes into his story about Carmen Basilio, Teddy Atlas is he's putting forth the same sentiment that I put forth when I addressed the announcer who I found was being very unprofessional in his statements about Rigondeaux. That's for people like me to say. That's not for him to say. It's not for the announcer to say some of the things that he was saying about Rigondeaux. It's your job to call the fight. It's not your job to castigate the fighters, because you're supposed to be held to a higher standard. What Teddy Atlas is basically trying to communicate to Stephen A. Smith is that you can't pull the human element out of sports. You can't pull it out of boxing. In a perfect world, yes, nobody would ever quit. Everybody would go to the final bell. Everybody would rather die than lose. But in real life, the brain works differently on different people. And it is unnatural for somebody to want to get beat up. It's unnatural for somebody to want to get punched in the face. Fighting has always been something that you did for survival. Now it became something that people trained to do, once again, to prepare themselves for survival. And then it was something that was put into ritualistic form to commemorate the quote-unquote pagan gods, really Nimrod, in the form of the god of war, Ares, right, or Mars, right? The term Mars being the rebel, right? Nimrod was the person who brought the knowledge of the martial arts and particularly boxing to mankind, amongst other things that he brought to mankind. That's why he was venerated. All right, this is where we get the origin of the gladiatorial games from. But you have boxing that went back to ancient Kemet, Babylon, and down through the other kingdoms. Point being is this. Teddy Atlas is just trying to make Stephen A. understand that the human aspect is what makes sports what it is. That people do quit. People do persevere. If everybody persevered, there'd be no honor in it. There'd be no glory in people who persevere through trying or adverse situations. So that's all he's trying to explain to Stephen A. But Stephen A is another one of these guys who, you know, he sits back with a microphone and he's able to tell everybody what they should do and how everybody should be, and he damn sure couldn't do it.
So you're justifying
like Cyclops. His eye was closed, and there were journalists like you, not as good as you, but like you, that were there, and they were looking at. He lost the fight, 15 rounds, and they were looking to give him an excuse. They said, Carmen, it might have been different if you had two good eyes. You know, that one eye was closed. Maybe it would have been different. And you know what Carmen said? He said, what are you talking about? The other eye was working fine. That's a fighter.
So, Teddy,
that's
who should he
what
fight next? Who should the next opponent be?
Teddy Atlas.
Get me a fighter for...
You are a fireman. Look, I hope that Stephen A pays for Teddy's funeral when Teddy has that heart attack. Because Stephen A going to make him have a heart attack one day, man. Look at Teddy's face. Teddy's face like, you fucking, I hate you, Steve.
For Lomachenko, who should the next fighter be?
I'm looking. Can somebody go find Teddy Atlas? Because I can't find him. I don't know the person I'm listening to right now.
Teddy.
You're justifying quitting?
Teddy.
Teddy. Who should Lomachenko fight next?
Steven, stop using those college degrees to twist things around. Stop it.
Who should Lomachenko fight next, fellas? Who should Lomachenko fight next?
But stop, Steven,
Vasyl.
stop with the alley shuffle.
Lomachenko.
Mikey Garcia, Mikey Garcia.
Okay.
That's who should be next.
What?
I agree.
Why?
Mikey Garcia, move up and wait and fight him.
I agree with that. I don't know about Mikey Garcia, but Lomachenko should move up and wait. He shouldn't fight smaller guys. He should fight bigger guys since he's too big, too strong, too fast, too skilled for the smaller guys. Why don't he move up and wait? I like that idea.
Yeah, he's supposed to. In history, the super skilled fighters have always moved up in weight, and they've always fought guys who were bigger than them and won. That's what made them transcendent. That's what Mayweather did. That's what Pernell Whitaker did. That's what Ray Robinson did. That's what Ray Leonard did. You got to move up and you got to fight guys bigger than you for you to be put on these all-time great lists. Now, I view Lomachenko as being an all-time talent, but who knows? Things could change. Your esteem can change based on your next performance. So we have to find out. I want to see him in there with a Mikey Garcia. We saw Rigondeaux in there with him, and we saw what happened. So we know Rigondeaux is a highly skilled fighter who's great at beating guys his size, or guys who might be a little bigger than him, but who are flat-footed. Now, can Lomachenko move up in weight, and can he use his skills, which appear to be transcendent, to beat guys who are bigger, stronger than him, and maybe even faster? That's what Mayweather did. So we'll find out.
Yeah, I do like that.
No, he can move up. Listen, let him move up. Let him fight Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia has the second best legs. I said it again. Second best legs. Lomachenko first best legs.
Well, here's my problem with that, Teddy. You said previously that Keith Thurman had the best legs in boxing. And I believe that Lomachenko does have better legs than Keith Thurman, but now you can't tell me that Mikey Garcia has the second best legs. And beyond that, I saw Mikey Garcia in his last fight against Adrian Broner. I didn't see the great leg movement anymore. I think that moving up to 140 has taken away a lot of Mikey's legs. But who knows? Maybe the game plan was just to walk Adrian down and pressure him, similar to what Maidana did. But I would definitely like to see a Mikey Garcia versus Lomachenko fight.
Second best legs in all of boxing. The guy is real accurate, good puncher. He's a surgeon. He doesn't miss much. He doesn't waste much.
I'll go with that.
He behaves like a fighter. At least so far he does. So put him in with him. You got to move up a little bit to make that fight. But I think Lomachenko has cleaned out everything. He's ready to move up.
That'd be a very good fight, especially since Mikey does not have a belt at that weight. I wouldn't mind seeing them meet at a catch weight, maybe 136, something like that. Make that shit happen.
Mikey Garcia. For me, that looks like a competitive match. It might even make you shut up for a minute, Steven. Excuse me, all due respect. It might make you happy.
I've been deferring to you, but the nonsense that you're spewing tonight, I can't believe what the words that's coming out of your mouth. You're justifying
you're looking like Lomachenko right now. Slipping.
These two need their own show. They need to get rid of Max Kellerman and bring Teddy Atlas on there. Instead of First Take, they could call it TSB, Two Screaming Bitches.
sliding, being real slick. You'll be, you know.
Where's my
Lomachenko
big brother
is
Teddy
real
Atlas?
in the main
Where
match.
has Teddy Atlas gone? I've been looking for. I can't believe I can't find Teddy Atlas tonight.
I'm
Sitting
not
there
in the
making a
garden with you.
justification for God quitting.
Stephen,
I mean, come on.
Stephen, where have I gone? Stephen, I'm right here. I couldn't get to the garden.
Yeah, I know you couldn't get to the garden. They stopped you from calling the fight. Bob Arum said, I don't want to hear none of Teddy's bullshit on his telecast.
I'm not as important as you. I couldn't get to the garden. I couldn't get a seat
You're
at the
very
garden.
important
They
to
were
me,
afraid
though.
that I was going to slip on the snow.
You're important.
Thank you.
You're important
Thank
to me, and you're important as me. I just can't believe that you sat up there and said the stuff that you have said.
Why the hell Teddy sitting there with a damn Raiders warm-up on for?
Tonight, I mean, you're justifying quitting. I have to talk to you, Teddy. I'm gonna be looking for you this weekend. I gotta talk to you. There's nothing wrong with you right now.
There you go. I don't know what class you took, and maybe you took a little bit of those cutie classes where you're being a little bit of a slickster there, a little bit of a con guy, you know, in college.
I just had some
That's not what I
Snickers,
said, Stephen. Stop it. Stop it.
Okay.
Stop it,
There you go,
Stephen.
boys.
I didn't say that. I said this guy makes fighters do what they shouldn't do. You should never quit, but they're human.
Teddy Atlas is going to be like Kevin Hart in a 40-year-old virgin. He said, you keep using big words. I don't know what they mean, so I'm going to take them with disrespect, Steve. Next time I see you, I'm going to whoop your ass.
He finds that little crack where he gets in there, he gets into their soul, he gets into their guts, he turns it, he pulls. He's like that kung fu fighter that goes like this, whack, and he pulls your heart right out of
Yo, Teddy Atlas must be snorting that good coke, man. Goodness sakes, it's too late for him to be this excited.
out of your chest.
All right, fellas, we gotta go. Teddy, we gotta go, Teddy. The fight is over. Stephen A. Smith, Teddy Atlas, always great to have you together. Just win, baby. Thank you.
TSB, two silly bitches, airing Monday at 10 a.m. Stephen A. Smith and Teddy Atlas screaming for 2 hours. Anyway, that was the review of the Rigondeaux versus Lomachenko mismatch. Peace.